15th, 2019, the council chambers at 803 West Holland in the city of Alpine, Texas, for the purpose of considering the attached agendas. The notice is posted pursuant to Texas Open Meeting Act, Section 551.043, Texas Government Code, and please mute your phone. Public notice, the use of cellular, I was just gonna get to that part, so you're okay after I read this. Public notice, the use of cellular phones are prohibited in the city council chambers during meeting of the city council. Members of the audience will be provided an opportunity to address the council during public hearings and during action items. Please speak into the microphone located at the podium, state your name and address. If you have a petition or other information pertaining to your subject, please present it to the city secretary. State law generally prohibits the council from discussing or taking any action on any issue not included on the agenda. But if appropriate, the council may schedule the topic for future discussion or refer the matter to staff. No personal attacks on council members or city staff will be allowed. The mayor may call a point of order to stop the personal attacks. If an individual continues to personally attack an elected official or staff member in a meeting, they may be barred. Okay. Call this meeting to order. We'll have the invocation by the Reverend Josh Stewie. Please stand.
Hello everyone. Let's take a moment to pause, to find a posture of prayer, and to be open to God in this place. God of this city, I give thanks for those of us who gather tonight to celebrate birthdays and retirements, to discuss and to hash out policy to serve people. Thank you for those of us gathered here tonight. And in this time, make of us a city who listens to one another, who listens to the vulnerable, who listens to you, oh God, so that we might best take care of our school kids, of our hospital, of our struggling neighbors. Make of us a city who is insistent with hope and with faith. Insistent with hope and faith in our vision and our dreams and in the dreams of our friends. And your vision, oh God, so that we might be led not by fear or worry, but by that very hope and faith. And finally, make of us a city which seeks to honor you by always doing all the good that we can, so that we may all see the power of kindness, the power of goodness in ourselves, in Alpine, and in the world. And for all this, we hope, we trust, and we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, sir. Pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Texas flag.
Honor my Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. City Secretary, do we have a quorum?
Mayor, we do have a quorum with an excused absence from Councilor Fitzgerald. And the notice was posted at 2 p.m. on January 11th, 2019.
Okay, thank you very much. This evening, we've got some presentations, recognitions, and proclamations. One is a happy birthday to the following employee, Lou Blum. Is he here? She? I'm sorry. Okay. And the other was our certificates for Johnny Galvan and for Riley Smith. And I'll be presenting to those in a second, but first of all, I want to recognize Hector Ramirez. Where are you at, Hector? Will you please come to the podium, sir? got a special presentation for Hector. Hector is retiring from the city after 35 years. So let's congratulate him. And as soon as I give him his award, he'd like to say something. Congratulations.
I enjoy working for the city of Alpine for all these years, 35 and a half years. I'm gonna miss my job. I already told Eddie, if he ever needs any help with information or anything, I'll be available to help him out. But I will miss everybody in the office, in the yard, everywhere.
We'll miss you too.
Congratulations, sir.
Thank you.
And condolences on your father.
Thank you.
Here's your award. Got it? Thank you very much, sir. That's yours. That's yours to keep and deserve. And now I've got a couple of recognitions. First one is Johnny Galvan. Johnny? Johnny Galvan, Alpine Casparis Municipal Airport. In grateful appreciation to Johnny Galvan for his service to the city of Alpine Casparis Municipal Airport and a job well done. Signed on this 15th day of January 2019 by Chris Ramos, City Mayor of Alpine. Congratulations, sir.
Thank you very much.
And the second one is Riley Smith. Riley Smith, Alpine Casparis Municipal Airport. In grateful appreciation to Riley Smith for his service to the city of Alpine Casparis Municipal Airport and a job well done. Signed on this 15th day of January 2019, Andres Ramos, Mayor of the City of Alpine, Texas. Congratulations, sir. And least but not least, Carl Fleming. Young man. Carl Fleming, Planning and Zoning Commission. In grateful appreciation to Carl Fleming for his 5 years of service to the City of Alpine Planning and Zoning Commission. Signed this 8th day of January. We're a little late on this one because we had to postpone the meeting, reschedule it. Andres Ramos, City Mayor Alpine. Congratulations. And we also have a proclamation for the City of Alpine schools.
Should be in the proclamation is actually like this.
Okay, no, I don't have that.
You do have one.
Any more here?
And I'll get you a little
Okay.
binder in a little bit.
And I'll read this proclamation here. Whereas all children of the City of Alpine should have access to the highest quality education possible. And whereas City of Alpine recognizes the important role that effective education plays in preparing all students in the City of Alpine to be successful adults. And whereas quality education is critically important to the economic vitality of the City of Alpine. And whereas the City of Alpine is home to a multitude of excellent education options from which parents can choose for their children. And whereas educational variety not only helps to diversify our economy, but also enhance the vibrancy of our community. And whereas our area has many high-quality teaching professionals who are committed to educating our children. And whereas School Choice Week is celebrated across the country by millions of students, parents, educators, schools, and organizations to raise awareness to the need of effective educational options. Now, therefore, I, Andres Ramos, hereby recognize January 20th to 26th, 2019, City of Alpine School Choice Week, and I call this observance to the attention of all of our citizens. In witness whereof, I do hereby set my hand and cause the seal of City of Alpine to be affected on this day, January the 15th day of January 2019. Honorable Ms. Ramos, City Mayor. Thank you. And also, you know, be sure to thank your teachers that are out there. They do a hard job. You know, it's tough for them, and every day they face a number of problems and hurdles in teaching our kids. And our kids deserve the best, especially, you know, whether it's in Alpine or anywhere in the state of Texas. They are the futures, they're the leaders of the country. So let's give them the best education we can get them. Thank you. Now we'll go on to reports. I don't have a report, City Manager.
I do have a report. Mayor, if it's okay with you, for those of you who came for the presentation, if you're wanting to go back and enjoy the festivities, you're welcome to. Otherwise, it's a really long meeting. And there might not be any cake left over.
Get your cue.
You can go this way. You can go this way. Go this way.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, citizens of Alpine. Thank you for being here today. I'm going to try to keep it really short. There's a lot that's been going on, but I'm going to kind of hit on three main things. The first is TCEQ. You have in today's agenda an agreement order for enforcement action that also includes the levying of a fine. These violations go back to 2016 and 2017. They're not current. I will let you all know that I did meet with TCEQ in person in December, and they told me that Alpine's biggest problem is licensing. We don't have enough people that are licensed, working on the lines, and that, of course, as you all have heard me say over and over again, is something that we need to work on with all of our employees and moving them up, getting them proper licenses and certifications. I did let TCEQ know that was something we were working on. They said that's great. This enforcement action, I think it was due in September. So if council does approve the enforcement action, I will be delivering it in person to TCEQ in Austin next week. And also meeting with their legal counsel who works on these to see if there are any options still left for the city to mitigate the fine amount. I believe the total fine amount is something like $42,000. So I'm hoping to be able to mitigate that down, or at least allow the city to pay it through an SEP or through quarterly installment payments, which would be better for us cash flow wise. Right now, a quick breakdown of the employees in water and wastewater. There are a total of 9 employees. One of them has a B license in water, which is sufficient on the water side as far as management goes. We have one foreman who has a C wastewater. And then we've got 3 worker ones with D licenses in water. That's it. With Chris's departure, we're short the B license on the wastewater that we need. They're already aware that he has left, so right now we are currently not compliant. Another visit when I hit the TCEQ offices is to speak with their licensing office. There is a process to request for waivers of time so that others can get licensed. I need to meet with them, discover what that process is, so that we can start it here, and hopefully, rather than waiting the 2 years and 5 years to move up, they'll allow us to waive them so that we can get people sufficiently licensed. As far as employees, we have 3 employees only in the department that have more than 2 years. Generally, the Bs and A licenses are not available until after they've done at least 5 years on the wastewater side. So we're trying to see, that's where we're trying to get waivers at. We have 2 employees that have plus 2 years, 1 employee that has less than 1 year, and 1 employee that has less than 90 days. There's still 4 positions vacant out there. We've got 1 employee that's pending the B wastewater license, 2 that are pending the D wastewater license, 3 for their D water license, and 1 for their C water license. So if those, so they are currently taking classes and they're preparing, in an essence, to take a test, but some of them are not eligible to test because they don't have the adequate amount of time. So if we're granted those waivers, and those will be moving up, and then hopefully we'll carry the sufficient licenses. We've had Chris's position open for about a month now. We've not received any interest from anyone to take that position over. It is a daunting position. If you've got licenses in water and wastewater, chances are you don't have any experience in gas or airport. So finding someone that has the licenses that's willing to learn and come into Alpine is going to be a challenge for us. And so it could be a long time, and I think from my perspective, it's better to try to get the employees that are there licensed and move them up accordingly. Otherwise, this is a situation you're going to continue to see year after year. If you bring in another public utilities director and you don't continue that process to get people licensed, when that person leaves, you're kind of left without the licenses again. So working kind of from the bottom up with licenses is probably your best bet for a long term as far as succession planning and keeping those licenses in-house in that aspect. We did get another notice of violation in December. This is for a violation that occurred in June of 17. Most of these violations, when you read through the list and the requirements, they're administrative. It's not really anything that has to do with the safety of the system themselves. It's the taking and the timely filing of reports, the submitting of the lab results. And in this case, in June of 2017, we missed the filing of a report and the filing of an assessment that went after that. And that's what the violation was. So there are administrative functions. The people who hold license right now, they've been on the job. They know how to work the system. They know what they need to do. It's the paperwork side of it that they still need to have some continual training and the opportunity to be consistent in filing those reports themselves instead of relying on someone else to submit them. So hopefully, as we get more people licensed, it gives them an opportunity from the management level to be more practiced in submitting those reports and the follow-up paperwork that's required of them. Unfortunately, there's no option to mitigate this violation, so we'll have to follow through with the paperwork, complete the process with them, and then see what options they give us at the time that they levy the fine for it. We still have to send the notice out. There will be a notice that goes out to the public that'll be published. The notice will also contain the note that there's no reason to boil water or concern on water safety. But we do expect that we'll all receive those phone calls wanting to know, hey, this notice, does this mean our water's not safe? Which it does not mean that. It just means we failed to file the proper report for that month in 2017.
This is mainly due to employee turnover.
I would say that has a large part of it. That particular month, June of 2017, you did have a public utilities director. I believe you had a city manager in place also. I think it was just an administrative oversight. I don't think that particular one was turnover. I think the enforcement action one is one of turnover, because that's mainly relies on, one of those violations is the failure to have de-licensed workers working on the lines and or work properly supervised by someone with an adequate license. That would be the turnover.
So Jessica, when you sort through and look at what the license requirements are, there's this trade-off between hiring someone from the outside to provide the licenses versus the fines. Have you done that trade-off to say, here's the risk versus the reward, and here's what it's going to cost?
Yeah, I don't see Megan. I think the city has, with or without the person with the licenses, the city has consistently been levied fines on an annual basis.
No, I understand that, but you can go hire someone to provide the licenses. It just costs you a premium, because the city's done that before. We brought people in who have the
Oh, you're
licenses.
talking about like contracting someone to come in?
That's correct, contract out.
Yes.
So TCQ is gonna find you X per day,
Mhm.
or your contract out is gonna cost you X per day. What's that trade? And until such time as we get
We
sufficient
get some
staff
new
to have the
license.
licenses.
Okay. I understand the question. So, we did look at that. That was an option that the city used in the past.
Yeah.
It did not mitigate any violation issues, for that particular portion that we had somebody contracted in. The cost to have someone contracted in, compared to what we pay in fines, is probably maybe slightly higher than the fine amounts, if not the same.
So before when I went through this, I heard the numbers were the exact opposite,
The opposite.
significantly higher on the fines
Right.
versus having to go pay.
Mhm.
And because we know, the last data I saw says in the state of Texas, there are 2,000 shortages of licensed personnel. So that's a huge gap, which is why we can't attract anyone here, because they're gonna get higher wages somewhere else.
Somewhere else.
So it'd be nice, maybe at the next meeting, to kind of walk through what those options are. You'll have been to Austin,
Yeah.
you'll have back, and kind of give us more. That would be very helpful.
I'm just curious, does Randy have any licenses that he could help out, or no?
No, his construction crew is currently working on the lines, but they have someone with the license that's kind of supervising and doing the actual line work. So his crew has been helping. It's kind of, we kind of looked at resources and said, okay, how do we help the water department catch up? Because they've got work that's got to get done in order for the street department to get ready for paving season. Randy volunteered his crew for a week to go out and do the excavation so that the water guys could get in and do the line work a little bit quicker. They were about 6 weeks behind on doing taps and extensions and other work orders. So with them helping out, they're hoping they'll be able to knock out about 2 weeks worth of work this 1 week. And then maybe again at the end of the month have the crew come back, but we're gonna be looking at it on a week-to-week basis to see how moving manpower around works. I think we've got somebody from the airport out there. We moved some people within the water department around, and then we have a new hire that just started today at the treatment plant. So Mike is back out at the treatment plant because there's nobody else with the wastewater license except for Mike. He's the only one. So again, if we can get a waiver on the times, that would allow probably about 5 other employees to get their D licenses and wastewater to get them started. But there's still just not enough people with a D license to keep up with the work orders and services and things that they have to do. And still meter read and get that in time.
So we're putting people from the gas department and the airport to come and help the water?
Yes, and then the street department will be doing the backfill. So once they're done with the line work, they'll move to the next one, and then the street department will be coming out and helping them do compaction, and then covering up the excavation themselves. So it's actually, we're using gas department and street department to help the water department. So it's a little bit of everybody.
So we're not alone in this, as far as the fines are concerned. Councilman Seeley said, what, 2,000?
Yes.
2,000 short in the state.
So in talking to them, they recognize that the remote rural communities have issues with licensing. They recognize that there's an issue with turnover. They did, I guess, try to cheer me up a little bit by telling me that Fort Stockton has equal or worse problems than we do. didn't really help me out any, because I was thinking, well, maybe I could go to Fort Stockton, so I guess I can't go there. Marfa's treatment plant doesn't require a B license, so we can't go to them. I did reach out to Odessa and to El Paso to see if they had any ideas. And they're kind of in the same boat. They're like, please don't talk to any of our people because we can't afford to lose anybody either.
Yes,
They're running 24/7s, so they're required even higher licenses, actually at the plant 24/7.
Well, hopefully they can be a little lenient because, we're not alone in this fight. These fines keep getting amassed on the ones that don't have to be. And, give us a little waiver where we get some of our folks in there a little bit quicker. Perhaps that'd be also an incentive to keep these folks.
And Lauren's been going over there, helping them with the reporting, and we hired an administrative assistant also that started today, and Lauren's training her on doing the reports. And that was something that we kind of said we need to really impress on her, that she needs to be able to remind these guys, hey, we've got reports done, we need follow-ups done, we need cat lab, and if she's missing something, not to wait for them to bring it, but remind them that she still needs it. So hopefully, at least with the administrative assistant, it'll help them keep up with some of the reporting and stuff, and that'll also give Johnny and Mike time to actually be out where they need to be instead of doing the paperwork. Any other questions on it?
And how much did you say the total violations for?
I think in that enforcement action, I want to say it was like 38 or 42. Off the top of my head, I don't remember. Is it?
I think the cover sheet says 48.
Does it say 48?
I mean, that's all the violations that we owe? Just,
That's all they've asked us to take advantage, that we're working on right now. Yeah, 4818 is the total amount. We've got other notices of violations, but they have not levied fines yet on them. I think we've got, the one we got in December, there was another one we got in early November, and there was another notice for another violation in September. But most of them go back to 2017, because they have not done, early 2017. They have not been out here for inspections since April of 17. So I asked them, please don't come visit us till later. I'll call you.
2025.
Yeah.
So that takes care of that. No more questions on what's going on with TCQ and what's in your packet today? So if you look in the packet, when you go through the list, I think there was something kind of like close to 20 different violations when they came on water and wastewater. The other one is, we should probably do something on the other one. Hopefully they won't give it to me when I go next week, but maybe February, March. Which would be the letter from Jay that's in there. So next are the off-the-record meetings. We held the first meeting in December. Just a quick breakdown. We had, I would say probably maybe about 30 people, roughly. We had 2 questions regarding streets, 7 about utilities, 2 about building services, 10 regarding hot funds, 4 on the police, public safety, and then 4 miscellaneous. So obviously the bigger number of questions came about hot funds and not funding nonprofits with hot funds. So I think there was some confusion that some of the nonprofits were being funded through hot funds. So there was some clarification to that. So I think that worked out really well. We did like a quick fire question and answer. So some of the questions you can answer, but the explanation really is much bigger than that kind of format can take. So if we have follow-up questions, hopefully this time around, our next one is actually tomorrow at the public library. Can elaborate a little bit more on those answers. Yeah. So the next meeting after Wednesday is February 13th is what I have on my calendar for the Legion. And then March 13th at WTND. So I have had a couple of emails wanting to make sure we were still doing this. I'm like, yeah, we're still doing it. I'm still gonna go.
We survived.
I survived. Made it
So what
out.
were the dates again at the public library? It's tomorrow.
Tomorrow, the 16th, February 13th at the Legion, and March 13th at the bank, WTND.
What time tomorrow?
6 o'clock. 6 o'clock.
They're all at 6 o'clock?
They're all at 6. So that was just a quick breakdown on those. Next, I'm going to spend some time on, again, hot funds and tourism. Just to kind of recap, the city budgeted $625,000, or anticipated $625,000 to come in, and budgeted the same amount going out right now. We've expensed or paid out $124,993. The bulk of that, $91,000 of that, has been on advertising. So we're trying to keep up with that 50%. Actual income, though, has only been $81,475. So that's something we need to kind of look at and track to make sure that that's coming in the way it needs to come in. So obviously, we're using fund balance from prior year to keep up with expenses for this year, even though we're technically within budget.
But that's kind of normal timing, isn't it? I know when Megan's report comes, because we get paid quarterly on that, don't we?
Yeah, but always October, November, December are kind of like your low cash flow months, and then it picks up in January, February, and then.
Yeah, we had a BCAD meeting today, and as part of that, we have some members on the Brewster County Assessment District Board. Tourism down south is doing gangbusters. All the hotels are full, which is very interesting. So hopefully we'll see we got some good results here as well.
It's because they're not charging at the park.
Yep, that's true.
You can get into the park for
It's
free.
open.
The draft legislation to remove the 50% has been done. I think you all have seen a copy of it. It basically just says legislation to repeal this section of the statute, which really just impacts Alpine. And Justin will be here on February 7th so that we can present it to the hoteliers and to the event promoters. It is going to be a combined meeting with both groups to kind of cover where we've been, what they need to be looking at, and hopefully to start building that discussion between them for occupancy numbers during these event dates. While we work on some kind of formula or method to get occupancy numbers at least on a monthly basis from the hotels we could go. That way we can track and trend the tourism on a month-to-month basis instead of on an annual based on revenues. And then that will also help us pinpoint when we want to target to bring in tourism through associations and other groups that hold regional meetings or kind of statewide meetings, but small groups types of thing.
And when is this?
That is February 7th at the Visitor Center. And that is at 5 o'clock. Yes?
5:30.
5:30.
If I heard correctly, on the hot funds, we budgeted $625,000, $124K of that. It's been ongoing to date. How much was it to advertising?
91,000.
91? That's included within the 124K, or is that?
Yes.
Have you already expended the amount we budgeted for advertising, or are we still?
Oh, no, we survive on.
Okay. And we're up for, I guess, accepting applications for the new year.
Well, we're still looking at doing June for that. Come March or April, we'll have a better feel for how much has not been expended, to see if there's anything else at the end of the year. Comes in, but at this point, I think it's kind of too early. We'll know better probably after after launch. I want to make sure that our revenue keeps on track with this.
Are the Airbnbs, we still having issues with those as far as collecting?
I've not seen a detailed report. I know that we've talked about getting together here in the new year to talk about an ordinance to include B&Bs, but we haven't had that conversation yet. Megan probably has more on the details than I do from B&Bs.
We've actually seen an increase in the number of B&Bs reporting. A lot of people have been coming in on their own, calling me, emailing me, requesting how do we comply.
So that's good.
Okay. There's quite a number on here in Alpine.
So we dusted off the vision plan. Looking at that, one of of course, if the legislation is repealed, the city's going to have some additional funds to do some improvements for tourism. And looking at the vision plan to see, well, what elements of that vision plan will qualify for hot fund use. And again, going back to UP to determine, okay, what is ours? Because on the vision plan we're showing, and our maps we're showing, this is leased to us. But when you physically go out there, there are other structures and other activities taking place. And so we need to kind of take a couple steps back, go back to UP, get some confirmation on what is leased to us and what else is available for us to lease that we can do with that, and then maybe sit down with the chamber and with the downtown association to say, okay, what really are our next steps? And then look at, okay, then plan B, if the legislation doesn't get repealed, how else do we move forward with this vision plan? To kind of see it realized. And I think it, the plan has, I mean, it is a good vision. I think it's something that would work really well here in Alpine. But the question is, where do we find the funds to move forward with those additional attractions for tourists? So that's going to be another conversation that we're having here early in the year, especially with the legislation. That vision has also, we've talked about the Civic Center, pulled out a plan from 2010 that the city put together for a Civic Center. And we've kind of talked about the possibility of a hotel conference center. And so I think the options, there's a lot of options and different directions the city could go with it. But it all comes down to how do we pay for this? Who's our partners in it, and then how do we use it to best benefit the entire city? So that's got to be some more in-depth discussion further on into the year, especially after we know what happens with the legislation.
Once you sort out the legislation, what's the timing for that, Jessica? Will that be this legislative session?
Yes, it will.
Okay.
So Justin had already drafted it. I believe, my understanding from his email is that it has been filed.
Good.
But before it hits a committee, we want to have this meeting with the hotel leaders to address any objections that they may have to it. And of course, like with anything, we can't guarantee what'll happen in 5 years.
Right.
All we can do is say this is where we're at today, this is our intent in this, but it really, long-term, it's always up to the citizens to make sure that administration and council are fulfilling their end of it. And I know that 50% was put in there because there was a strong feeling the funds were not being allocated correctly. And I think freeing it up gives us a chance to make some improvements that need to be made for the benefit of tourism. But it doesn't mean that we're going to pursue promotion any less aggressively than we have been.
It probably makes sense that, as I'm just thinking ahead, probably setting aside a workshop maybe in the May-June timeframe. So that'll give the time for the legislation to go through. We'll have good sense from that. Just to have the workshop say, here's what our options are. We've taken into account, here's all our assets, our physical structures. Now that we've got the valuations on those, what are they worth? What are some of the options that we can look at and consider? But that's a maybe Cynthia could put that on the date and timeframe so we have a workshop for it.
Is TML involved in this also, in helping?
No.
They're not.
TML will usually lobby on behalf of cities if there is a larger number of cities. Usually if it's kind of like a one city issue, they don't get
They're
involved.
on there.
No.
So
So we will need to make phone calls to our state representatives and other people and let them know this is what's coming and.
Yes, we need to get a list of all our legislators so we can start calling them.
Yes.
Well, it sounds like February 7th is an important meeting, and then after that, we'll have a sense about where we're at, and we can head on over to Austin.
Right.
Or we'll call for a day trip.
Last thing on the hot fun and tourism is, I think I had told you all before, we got bikes. Got bikes. So this is kind of the logo that's going to be put on them. That's for the basket in the back. This will go through the body of it. Just real quick so you guys can see. I did talk to Dr. Kibler because they have a bunch of abandoned bikes also. So if he is able to find a way for us to have those bikes as part of this program, then we'll need to see how much it'll cost us to convert them to be part of this program as well. They may not. Some of them are old, but some of them are really nice, like mongoose mountain bike type of bikes. So these, we expect them to be available at the visitor center by March. The street department's already cleaned them up, the decals have already been ordered, and so by March, we're hoping to have them up. We need to, if anybody has a bike rack laying around, can use one at the visitor center. If not, we'll look and see where we can pull some funds to set up a bike rack so that we can really make them available to the public.
How many bikes do we have on hand right now?
14.
14.
Well, we've got a city employee who's opening up a bike shop too, so you might work with him to say, because he's looking at the electric bikes on that side, and that'd be an option to take advantage of some things he's doing too.
And Chris has met with him. Chris has met with him as well as with Chris Herrera from Sol Ross.
Yeah.
And so they don't seem to think that it's any kind of competition. But yeah, we've talked about how we work that in as far as doing some bike lanes or sharrows for tourists on these bikes. And let's see. That's pretty much all I have on that, unless council has any questions about anything else. Personnel-wise, we're still looking for worker 1, 2, and 3 for public works and utilities. There's public safety positions open, and training and succession plans will probably start being implemented in February. Water and sewer as far as infrastructure, got a letter off to NADBank to see if they have any funds to help us pay for the water audit and the rate study. The proposal came in at $65,000. Our project information forms for TWDB are due, I believe it's March 1st, so I'll be meeting with the engineer again this week on this year's project forms. And the RFQ for the needs assessment has gone back out. Those are due in on the 25th. Eddie and myself, as well as Hector before Hector's retirement, we're working on a list of streets to work on for this year. We distributed them to the utilities so that they can start making plans to take care of the infrastructure underground, which is where we came up with this plan to move some people to make sure that everybody's ready for it. And as I stated, gas, water, and streets are all working together to make sure that we can do something this year with the streets. There's proposals have been sent, or requests for proposals have been sent out to engineers to do the street study. They're coming in anywhere from $35,000 to $90,000, so probably on the next agenda I'll have something for council to approve. We did approve the street study last year as part of one of our meetings, but I think we only set aside like $40,000 for it. So it's going to depend on how detailed you want this proposal to done.
to be done. The engineers have told me that I've reached out to that are sending proposals are only those that can get to it within the next 6 weeks and get it done within 3 months. So that way, we can try to tie that in with the street project and make sure that we work in conjunction with them and that we're not messing up their street plan. Let's see what else. It was a busy first of the year for public safety, as you all know, and municipal court, we've already held another municipal court. We're talking about doing a warrant roundup in the spring to try to address some of the outstanding warrants. And the project at the airport is moving. Some days they tell me they're ahead of schedule, and then it'll rain, and then they're back on schedule. So we'll see if they actually get it done by the 22nd like they promised. Are there any other questions? And you've all seen the overtime report, so you know we're doing good with overtime. That's pretty much almost a non-issue at this point. Yeah. Anything else? Okay, great. All right.
Thank you. We'll move on to public hearings. City manager.
Mayor, the first public hearing is to obtain citizens' views and comments concerning application for the zoning change from R1 to R3, intended land use for the proposed apartment development, legal description of a 5.475 acre tract of land out of section 102 in block 9, GHMSA, I'm guessing that's RYCO survey being out of a 10.16 acre tract of land, described in book 324 at page 164, both recorded among the official public records of Brewster County, Texas. Record owner is Brad Obie.
And that's the property of the Trujillo, correct?
Yes.
Any comments?
The engineer's here if you, oh well.
What's that?
I wanted to make comments.
The engineer for the developer's here.
Okay.
I don't know, do you want to make a comment?
No,
Not really.
Your chance.
Yeah,
Okay. Let's go on to be.
Next public hearing is.
Just a minute, we got one way in the back.
That's the Galveston, Harrisburg, San Antonio Railway.
Galveston, Harrison, and San
San Antonio Railway.
Carl Fleming,
They
number
own
5.
land.
Uh, When the Planning and Zoning Commission first held the thing, apparently, we had a lot of questions. There was a lot of discussion, but the discussion apparently within, or it cannot be forwarded to the city council because of problems with, I don't know what it is, but therefore, apparently, any discussion that we had, we passed it, but there were some questions. And one of them dealt with sewer, because there's going to be some sewer problems associated with this project, because it's got to have a lift station, and somebody's going to have to pay for that. There's a water pressure problem out there, and somebody's going to have to put the water pressure bills on that. And the road problem, does the city already have the road now? Since Lechiquia, it's a private road, and apparently the city is already taking it. So there's going to be road problems out there because it's only a Caliche road. And when you start looking at 100 cars, possibly in the future, using that road, you're going to have a problem. So there's going to have to be some state looking at this, because you're going to have school buses having to stop at the intersection to pick up kids. And right now, there's just not much place to pull off right there because it's on kind of a hill. I'm not sure why we can't, when commissioners or commission or boards meet, that they can't have their discussion passed on up to the city council. I think the city council is missing the bet by not having information go forward from there. Those basically are my comments.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? Let's Let's move on to B.
B is a public hearing to discuss the community development needs of the city of Alpine prior to the proposed submission of a program year 2019-2020 Texas Community Development Block Grant application to the Texas Department of Agriculture, Office of Rural Affairs.
Any comments?
Mayor, if I may.
Yes, ma'am.
I guess I have questions. Hi, I'm Marcy Tuck. Hi, council members, Jessica. I'm actually I'm appointed to Ward 5 for the city's Parks Advisory Board. And I just wanted to know if there's a list or priorities of what the city has thought of for this next round of CDBG funding. I didn't know what the hearing was about. I just didn't know if there was additional information at this point or.
We got anything?
We can't comment.
Marcy, we can listen, we can't respond.
Oh,
Yeah, so sorry about that. So, but it doesn't fall on deaf ears.
Yeah.
okay. Okay, is there public information, I've read the CDBG site on it, I'm familiar actually with the larger city CDBG process, but I've boned up on the rural program through, not through HUD, but through AG. Is there anything public that we could see to look at, to comment on? No?
The Regional Review Committee hasn't even met to set priorities.
Okay, so
Or
that's.
have they?
They met, I have priorities here.
Oh, you have them already?
They met in April of
Oh.
2017.
Oh, no, but this year they haven't.
Yeah, they did, for
Oh,
2019 to 20.
So he may have it.
Yeah.
But
Okay,
you can comment.
I can comment?
Yeah.
Okay.
sure, please, come comment.
I was gonna say, I think the list doesn't ever change.
Okay.
Water, sewer's always first.
Yes, yeah.
Jerry Cleveland, how does that work? The River Committee met, I think back in April in Van Horn, 2017. They set project priorities, because all this is based on a point system. You basically have to apply for the two top priorities in order to have a chance of being funded, because in the past, there was what was called a gentleman's agreement, where once they would know the application and the number of applicants, they would split up evenly. For the 2017 to 18 applications, TDA came in and cut that out completely, so now you're competing against every other eligible applicant that submits an application. The limit has been set at $275,000. The applications are due March 13th. They were actually, the first date that TDA said was January 7th, but they finally figured out that wasn't going to be enough time. A lot of entities were in the same boat. So the priorities are, our first priority, which is worth 70 points, water, wastewater, septic tanks, and yard lines. Any kind of water project, wastewater project, septic tanks, or yard lines. Second priority, roads, drainage, stormwater, and streets. Fourth priority, basic utilities, which basically refers to the extension of first-time gas service. Because there are some cities that, for example, Clinton, there's some, they're basically, they have gas service there, but there's some houses that don't have gas service. They're coming, Clinton, Sadia, the communities around there, they have a need for first-time gas service because they're still on propane, I guess. And all other activities, 42 points. In the past, the city has applied, like 3 years ago, the city applied for a bathroom for Centennial Park, that was approved. But that was based on Block Group 1, which was basically from, Block Group 1, which was basically from 5th Street down west towards the last street, going west anyway, so that was approved. Last year, the city applied for, got funded for fire hydrants. All this is based on low moderate income benefit. 51% of beneficiaries have to be low moderate income. And give you an example, the city of Alpine right now is they're about 43% low moderate income based on data, census data. So as a result, the city cannot apply for a project that will benefit citywide, like a water tank or improvements to the sewer plant. So they would have to apply for target area projects. Pick a specific area. If you want to go for streets, pick a specific area in town that you know the streets are bad. They can be paid but deteriorated, or they can be unpaid. And survey that person's along those street, and if you get 60 persons that live along those street total, then 51% has to be no moderate income. That's how you qualify it. They've gotten real strict in the past this year about using census data to make a block group or to make the city low moderate income. What the city did, and they surveyed Lucy's district, which is basically a southeast side, because that wasn't, that was at, the census data had it at 45%, so Lucy and her people worked real hard and they surveyed 295 people. That was added to the census data, which brought it up to 60%. That's not allowed anymore. That really hurt a lot of other cities too. The only way you can do it is survey the entire city and hopefully, hope you get 51%. But that'll take forever.
Well, that's interesting. So what do you suggest, I don't know, can I ask them, what do you suggest at this point? I mean, that for us to move forward with?
You can probably, streets, or you have two census tracts that are at more than 51%. You have census tract 950-400 block group 2, which is from Cockrell all the way to Scott Street, which is depending by the railroad. That's where the city put the bathrooms in Tingle Park, because it benefited only that area, the bathroom.
So do you think we'll be able to finish the fire hydrant project? Or are we
Yeah.
gonna have to do something different?
The fire hydrant, you can finish that, because, well, we did, I didn't bring the map with me, but we put on the map for that district, we put each fire hydrant, the 31 fire hydrants that we rebid, I give it to the engineer, and he put a 500-foot circle around each. Okay, 31 fire hydrants will cover the entire area. So you can also put fire hydrants on block group 2, but you have to put enough fire hydrants to cover the whole area. It's a pretty big block group. Or you can pick neighborhoods and just and do some surveys. The easiest would be streets. A lot of cities now are going to streets. This should be a high priority. Streets are replacing, if we have any deteriorated sewer water lines that are undersized and they're replacing, or you have sewer lines that have, you can survey the homes along those streets that would benefit from the lands, and then you have only 51% eligible project. What's happening now, it's just real hard to get any bids. Most of the contractors, most of the good bidding contractors are busy in El Paso. Most of the construction contractors are busy in the oil field. We've had to rebid a project in Fort Hancock, and right there by El Paso. 6 blocks came in over 500,000.
Say that again.
5 blocks came in about $300,000 for Fort Hancock to repay
61
blocks.
And but that probably included reconstruction.
Yeah, total reconstruction.
That was total reconstruction. With
Martha just-
well, with sidewalks too, they might.
No curb and gutter.
And it was
No concrete.
CDBG? Was it CDBG?
Yeah.
Don't they require sidewalks in Mike?
No. But, well, the bid was rejected, it's been redesigned, and it's been bid out again. Marfa, they paid 4 streets, 4 blocks using, Colmex Type D. That was, what did it come out to, a little about 280. But Marfa put some money in. 22 feet wide, 3 inches of Colmex. It's just really expensive right now.
You need to go, Marty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just the atmosphere, that question down, anybody out here, there's a problem. I would recommend street improvements, or water, sure. The applications are due on, so hopefully at the next meeting, y'all can make a decision, so, because the surveys have to start. The council still has to pass a resolution authorizing the submission.
So it's been on the agenda for January 29th? February 29th, okay, good. Good.
Any questions? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Jerry.
So just to point out that if the maximum application amount is $275,000 after engineering and admin, you're probably at somewhere right around a $200,000 budget. Because you'll lose 10 to admin and 15 to engineering and 10 to admin. Some project impact.
Good news, huh?
Well, I know, like, from my experience is that you get to the point where it's just not worth the effort because you can't complete a project that's meaningful.
Okay, any more? Let's move to C, city manager.
This public hearing is to obtain citizen views and comments concerning a conditional use permit application. Property identification, street address is 1006 Madawan Drive, Alpine, Texas. Legal description is Alpine Country Club Estates, Phase 1, Lot 255. Record owner is Curtis Jenkins.
What's the conditional use for?
Yes, sir.
I'm Curtis Johnson.
Please address the podium, sir. Yes, sir.
They went through last night, right?
I'm asking the council to consider a conditional use permit so that I may operate a small gunsmithing, and what I do is specialize in building target rifles and hunting rifles. And I don't use any advertising. I don't have a showroom so that there is no traffic. All my business is done by word of mouth. And what I do is if someone calls and wants something, I will order up the parts and put them all together, and then I ship that out and as a whole unit, so that the area wherein I live will not be disturbed or have lots of traffic and all that. And in order for me to do this, I need the conditional use permit because the ATF will not allow me to operate there without it, so that's a consideration. And I have gone around to my neighbors and I have told them what I do, and I have a whole list of signatures and stuff that see no problem with what I'm doing. And I have all those, that paperwork, and I will give it to the city secretary, so you will have that at the next meeting. And to me, they've given me a lot of, inspiration by doing that, and I take that quite seriously, so that the neighborhood remains as it is. I appreciate your time and consideration, and thank you.
Thank you, sir.
So this is on February 5th as well.
Carl Fleming, Ward 5. The Planning and Zoning Commission passed this last night, but Mr. Jonke didn't have any idea he was going to be on for tonight. I mean, and when he's leaving, I said, you know, I think you're gonna have to be on the agenda for tomorrow night. And he said, oh, I'll show up. And also, Mr. Duncan, basically, the only reason he needs a permit from the city to do this is because of federal firearm licensing. They will not permit it unless the city okays it. And I believe he's had a federal firearms permit in the past, so there's no problem with that. But by not saying what the conditional use permit was for a small gunsmithing outfit, it perked my curiosity of what the hell is this permit for? And sure enough, yeah, it's for a small shotgun permit. And I wish that they would had just said this for a small gunsmithing permit, you know, for a thing, because it's required to have a city permit. Had he lived in the county, there would have been no problem at all. No question would have ever come up other than, you know, he would have had to have a federal firearms permit. And he can't get one unless the city okays this small permit.
Thanks, sir. Any more? Okay, seeing none, let's move to the consent agenda. City manager.
A is approval of minutes from city council meeting on December 4th, 2018. B is approval of minutes from city council meeting on January 8th, 2019. And C is approval of appointment of Keith Nixon to the Parks and Recreation Board for Ward 2.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I approve the consent agenda as written.
Okay, sir. Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, go ahead and vote on it. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, information or discussion items. City manager.
A is discussion of changes to the airport rules and regulations as recommended by the Airport Advisory Board, and I'm going to turn this over to Megan.
The airport is, excuse me, the airport has recommended that section 1 of the airport rules and regulations be revised to allow that anyone who operates a business, commercial or otherwise, has to follow city ordinances in order to operate that business at the airport. So it's, I don't have the actual language in front of me, I do apologize. This is just kind of to get the discussion going. It will have to be an ordinance change. The rules and regulations are adopted by the city as an ordinance. The last time we made any revisions was in 2016 to the same section. This is kind of just to put it back that they have to follow any city ordinance, including our vendor permitting, if that's what it comes down to, if that's the type of business they're trying to operate. But it kind of gives business owners kind of a guideline of which direction to go. So we wanted to throw it out there for a discussion item first. I know that Cynthia has been kind enough to send it to Andrea with Mix to make sure that the ordinance is written correctly. The current copy I have is actually like 3 ordinances on top of each other. So I think it will help to have it cleaned up just a little bit. But there was no other proposed changes to the rules and regulations. For those of you who don't know, the rules and regulations are what's provided to all of our lease owners, the hangar owners. It is a basic template that the TxDOT Aviation FAA kind of put together, that anyone who basically owns a hangar, operates at the airport, has to follow a set standard guidelines via FAA TxDOT. There's just a little bit of rules and regulations, safety concerns, building. You'll have a complete copy in your packet the next meeting. I do apologize, I don't believe we put one in there. This was, like I said, just to throw it out there, get it on the agenda so that we can move forward with the public hearing, the ordinance, that kind of thing.
Okay.
So Megan, for me, this is kind of a no-brainer. It's city property. People should follow the rules and regulations of the city if you're on city property. what's been the pushback, or is it just a question of getting clarity because people have asked questions as well, I'm on the airport, but I don't follow the rules, I'm missing something here.
So when we presented doing the rules and regulations, we tried to review them annually to make sure we're in compliance with the basic template that's provided to us, but if there's anything changes, a lot of the rules and regulations will reference specific circulars coming from the FAA. The big pushback has always been that very first rule. The first copy of the rules and regulations that I'm aware of, it went into a lot of detail of notifications, paying taxes, so that was the first pushback that was changed. It was a little bit more vague the second go round. It was brought up again of the city would like to advertise on behalf of those who operate a business on our website. You know, if you've got some charter service or you're an airport mechanic, we want people to know that when you fly in, hey, if you're having engine trouble, there's someone here who can help you. Just trying to make it more, hey, this is what we have at the airport. There was a little bit of pushback because of past history with the city and hangar owners and a lot of just he said, she said. So they thought that the best thing to move forward was let's just put in there flat out that they have to follow the city ordinances. We also sent out information to all of the hangar owners that, hey, do you operate a business? Would you like us to advertise for you? We've had some positive feedback come back on that. It just really does help the airport grow and to have people come in if they realize, hey, these are services out here that we may or may not have known. So that was the big push. It's just the city doesn't always know what goes on out there. Yes, they are privately owned hangars, but at the same time, it was just that friendly reminder that you still have to follow city ordinances.
Sounds like a no-brainer.
One step to more clarity.
There you go.
It's gonna be put on like as a public hearing and ordinance and all that, and I know Mick's office is helping us work on the ordinance, and then you'll have the full packet. It is, like I said, just a template that comes from the state. So there's a lot of safety features that, if you're not aware, that the city does have to follow along with the hangar owners, especially when it comes to the fuel, the construction, the debris, and everything that goes on.
Okay, very good, thank you. See on that?
That's what you're going to do, I'm just that.
Okay,
It's
good
a
deal.
no-brainer.
All right, let's go ahead and move on to the action items to be accompanied by a brief statement of facts, including where funds are coming from, if applicable. Action items limited up to 10 per meeting. Citizens are allowed to comment, limited to 3 minutes after being called upon by the mayor. Citizens are required to state their name and the ward in which they reside. Priority will be given to citizens of Alpine and those who own business or property in the city. Individuals who do not live in or own business or property in the city limits of Alpine will be allowed to speak if there's time available. Councilman.
Sir, thanks very much. So this is really aimed at implementing what I believe was trying to be put in 2010 when the one-way was implemented on 6th Street, but the angled parking never put in place. So I went back and researched what are the ordinances that need to be changed, and the ordinance that you have in your packet reflects this. But it's really to repeal the ordinance 2010-04-01 that established the loading and unloading on the east side of 6th Avenue on the 100 block. That's the closest, having a senior moment here on which street is that? What's the far one? Holland. On Holland. It's on the southeast side of Holland, where there's no longer need to keep a loading unloading zone there. It would create a no parking zone on the east side of 6th Street for the entire block, so that the angled parking could go in, and it would create 60-degree angled parking on the west side of the street for the entire block, using the design and contractor donated by Walt Pyle, who's here this evening, to get this job done, and it would put in place a handicap space and comply with city ordinances. This costs the city nothing because Walt's paying for the striping and has already got the contractor lined up for that. And so, in my view, this is only 9 years in the making to go make this happen. So the ordinance is there, and I would propose that the city council approve the first reading of the draft ordinance 2019-01-01. The purpose fully implementing the plan for 6th Street when the one-way was implemented in 2010. And I've already gone through the 3 elements. As a reminder, with that motion, this is the first reading. If we were to pass it, this allows it to go to any, to go do the public hearing and to finalize the ordinance so we can bring it back. But this is the opportunity for us to talk about the ordinance if we want to make any changes. So that's the motion that I make.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion's been made, second. Any discussion?
Pastor Cobos, Ward 5. I want to thank you, Council, Mayor, and everyone here today. I think this is really, believe that this is really awesome. We've contributed our time, Walt Pyle, David Busey, and several individuals, and this is really an area of revitalization for the downtown district. It's, you know, people probably wonder for the moment like, what's going on. Then at the end of the day, it's going to be beautiful, really awesome. And you know, this is really you have a public interest. It's more parking. It's going to give it a really nice look, and I do believe there'll probably be several other investors at the time that'll, you know, there's some plans out there to put benches and all that other nice stuff there. So it's something that's really going to be appreciated by this town, and I really appreciate your vote and everything, your support, and I thank you all so much for your time.
Thank you. Walt, you have anything to say?
Dave
I just, I saw something. This is
Yeah, Ward 5. I appreciate your time and effort in trying to put this through, and I'm very proud and humbled to be able to be a part of it, because I look to 6th Street as being the street of Alpine, and I think we're going to make something really wonderful out of it. It's actually increasing parking spaces, and it's a win-win for everyone. And I'm just happy to be able to participate in it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. You put a lot of time and effort into it too. Mr. Busey. You're hiding back there.
Well, as Mr. Stevens said, this started back in 2010. And at that time, there must have been some thought in it because fortunately I had a engineered drawing at about that time that showed the angle parking. However, it was never implemented. They did it at a 45 degree, which was pretty common in those days. However, by today's standards, these stalls would have been probably too narrow. They're 8 foot, where today you need at least 9 foot. I've used all the parking information from the Institute of Transportation Engineers and come up with, as well as some other information, come up with a 60-degree configuration, because there have been some changes. Like since then, this curb extension has extended 36 feet, where on the original drawing it was much less. So what we've ended up with is 20 spaces as opposed to the original 17, plus a ADA handicap place right on the corner there will be accessible. The other thought about this is to possibly do some beautification. This is kind of a dead strip here, although there's been a lot of investment. We have 2 galleries, we have several services there. I've talked to property owners who would probably improve their facades. There was a mention of maybe some planters along the curb to give it a more pedestrian appeal, because a lot of people just don't go down that way. So I'd like to work with the beautification committee or whoever to maybe come up with some of those ideas. That's really all I have to say. I just, if we're going to do it, I'd like to see it work. And according to my research and Walt and people like that, it seems to be the best option, the 60-degree. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir.
May I have 5 minutes?
Yes, ma'am.
Dave, do you have an estimate on those improvements for the corners and the benches?
No, not actually. they really haven't been planned. I did a sketch that I think I sent a copy. But we could go into that. I'd be glad to further design that if you like. And then it could also be, maybe we could raise some money somehow, like adopt a planter. But this is going on in a lot of small towns. They're doing small plantings and things to get more pedestrian traffic. And you know, the Holland Avenue, 6th, 5th, 4th really are the key visitor attraction in this community. And so the more we do to improve it, the better it is for everybody. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. And I think those planners will really enhance that area because it's so plain and dreary there. So I think it'd be more pedestrian friendly than anything else. So,
And I do have a copy of what David was talking about, if you want to look
yeah,
at
I've
it.
seen that. All seen it? Okay. Any more discussion? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and vote on the motion. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you very much, Mr. Seaman, for the motion. And we'll go to item 2. Councilman Stevens, you're on again.
So there's an individual who wants to put in concrete curb on the west side of the city road. It's actually on North Third. And in order to do that, he has to get a permit and get approval from city council because it's going to butt against the city road. And that's city property, so that's the requirement. If you look in your package, you see the pages there, that's the building permit that's gone through our building department. You see configuration for the curb, and you also see a plat of the land where he's going to run the curb. And all he's trying to do is keep water flowing in the right direction when it rains there because it comes down out of Alpine Heights, and when the water flows, without the curb being there, it literally eats up the road because it gets up underneath the asphalt. And so in my view, he's actually doing a service to a favor to the city by putting the curb in so it'll butt up against the asphalt and won't tear the doggone thing out anymore. So with that, I'd like to motion that the city approve the request by Craig Pauls at 801 North Birch Street to install a concrete curb on the west side of the city road in front of his property.
I'll second.
Okay, motion's made, it's been second. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's go ahead and vote on the motion. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Move on to item 3, city manager.
Mayor, this is a resolution ordering the general election in May.
That's it.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we take action to approve resolution 2019-01-01 establishing an order of general election for the city of Alpine, Texas.
Second. Okay, the motion's made and second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item 4, city manager.
Mayor and council, this is the enforcement agreement with TCEQ, which was discussed earlier. I don't know that I need to comment anymore.
I don't think so.
The horse is dead. I'm here for the headstone.
Okay. Now, entertain a motion. Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the agreement, enforcement agreement with TCQ for the violations of 2016-2017 in the amount of approximately $48,000.
2018, $18, isn't it?
Where's this money coming out of?
4018.
48,000.
It's on your cover sheet, Mayor.
$48,818.
Right.
I'll second.
Okay, is there any discussion on this?
Where are we getting the money from?
It'll come out of the water and wastewater fund.
Any more discussion?
I think it was stated somewhere in here that we could pay on allotments, is that correct?
Had we submitted it in time, We were actually even discounted 9,763. But because we did not follow through, we're looking at the full amount. And so in talking to their legal counsel, he said, well, if they assign the agreement, then you can bring it in and then we can see where we go from there. It's all gonna depend on how far along he is in the legal process on his side. So that's the reason I put the full amount, because technically at this point, we are still liable for the full amount. But I'm hoping that carrying the agreement to them and discussing, the mitigation options with them, maybe they'll still at least give us the discount back of 97.63 and allow us some of the other options.
Yeah, we're blessed to negotiate.
Because sometimes they'll even tell you, well, if we tell them we don't really have the funds to do it, can we do an environmental project in lieu of paying the fine? Sometimes they allow us to do that. I think we're too far along in this, but, so I'm hopeful for something.
Let's put it to rest. Any more discussion? Seeing none, vote on the motion, all those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, like sign, motion carries. Thank you. Item number 5, city manager.
Mayor and council, this is, what is in your agenda is the proposed fee schedule consolidating all of the fees that are collected or charged in different departments. This is probably step one. As you can see in your packet, there's not an ordinance in there, but we wanted to start with the discussion and on the background on this. To kind of give you an idea, when we first got the list, I want to say it was probably twice as many pages as this, and we went back to the departments and said, no, you need to narrow that down. And so this is kind of what we've come out with. There's a couple of pages in there. The gas and the water is one area that we spent a lot of time working on to make sure that they mirrored. Again, going towards that goal of consolidating the bills, we wanted to make sure that the bills were consistent. And we wanted to make sure that we weren't also double charging people. So if the gas and the water bill is combined and you get terminated, you don't get terminated 2 fees. You just get 1 fee. And so by bringing them all aligned, making sure they're all consistent, the gas department does have fees that it charges to people that is not in our ordinance. And the water department's fees have not been adjusted for line extension. They're still at $27 a linear foot, which is probably about $8 less than average. So it's a reasonable fee. The gas department's is $7. And so we're trying to get some consistency in how we charge them so that moving into that consolidated bill system, the fees all line up evenly. Just to kind of give you a background, Keela did most of the work, so I'm not blaming her, but letting you know that this was a lot of work. Trying to reach out to other cities, and so I want to acknowledge her hard work and her effort in putting this together, because she's the one who had to make the phone calls, put the spreadsheets together, follow up with the departments after it was reviewed. But demographically, with the cities that you see in here, when you look at populations of these cities, Alpine, Brady, Fort Stockton, Monahans, and Presidio are the cities that are closest to us in population numbers. And Alpine, Fort Stockton, Marfa, and Presidio are the cities whose median household income is closest to ours. So our median household income is at $37,146. The Presidio's low was at $27,455, and then Marfa is at $47,356. So we tried to find, even though we looked at kind of regionally these other cities, we tried to stay within those two demographic areas,